to the Monday, August 23rd, Town Council meeting, Cumberland, Maine. Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Motion has been made.
Second.
A second. Anybody have anything they want to discuss about the minutes? Seeing none, I will call for a motion, vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And town managers report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple brief things. We are still paving around town, primarily on the Forest side now. We are fast approaching basically the crew landing again. It's been a little bit weather dependent, and the latest storm hasn't helped us very much, but we are hoping to wrap up most of that paving on the Forest side in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We'll also be doing our final punch list on the garage in about 2 weeks. Main Street is pretty much done for the paving portion of it, but the Route 9 work down below from basically Tuttle Road back toward Falmouth will be going on for pretty much the next month. There is some concern about the condition of the riding surface. Well, here are the choices. This is what's called PM wrap, which is a material of millings and asphalt and cement that are all mixed together and basically spread over the surface of the existing road to kind of form the new gravel base, if you will. We're not putting any gravel down, we're just mixing this former pavement, and it forms a pretty much a bituminous block of extra strength for the pavement. That's what's down now. The next portion of this are 2 layers of actual pavement that are hot bituminous pavement, which will be spread over just like we do normal paving jobs, and the road will be riding much, much better. So think about this as a better choice over just an old gravel road that ruts up when it rains and gets very dusty. This basically has given the base of the pavement strength and will also be what the first and second layer of actual pavement get placed on. So more to come. Most of that paving is not going to start until 2 to 3 weeks from now. So they stripe it because of the duration that it's open to traffic. So for safety reasons, it's important to show where the center lines are, and people are getting confused at the width, and in places guardrail isn't down. So it's nice to have something to focus on for, you know, where you are in relationship to where you should be on the road. So there was some confusion when it got striped, thinking that that was the final product, and it's not anywhere close to the final product. So it's still going in the right direction, and we're pretty happy with the cost of that. You know, at about $1.4 million, they went about 1.5 miles. And if you think about how much it costs us to rebuild roads with shoulders, it's a heck of a lot more than that. So it's probably about 1/3 of the cost. So it may be a program in the future we might want to consider. The problem is the state owns the technology, if you will. It's a pug mill, and they own that great huge pile of millings that gets milled into this product. And really, they and the Turnpike are the only 2 games in town that have that kind of quantity of materials. So it may not work for us, but something to think about down the road. And I'm pretty excited about the way it's going on Route 9. The last item I just was going to talk to you about was the floats down at Broad Cove. We were watching the weather very closely this weekend, and seriously, hour by hour, we're considering whether to hoist the ramp up on Saturday, because that ramp is a very, very expensive ramp. But to do that, we have to do it at high tide. We have to basically get our guys on a ladder and use a chainfall hoist on 2 sides and yank it up, and then it's safe. It doesn't take a long period of time, but you know, with winds and waves and everything else, and trying to be on a float that's rocking everywhere, it wasn't the most safe issue. So we decided once we heard we were tracking the weather about every 6 hours. Once we knew Saturday by noontime things seemed to have not going in the direction they originally predicted, we decided to leave it as is. So it wasn't that we decided not to do anything. We were tracking it every 6 hours, but it didn't seem worthwhile to pull it out. And we honestly have no real means to beach our floats. So we just left the floats would be okay in place. Those things are very rugged. We asked kayak holders to pull their kayaks off the float, because if they weren't secured, it would be really tricky to try to retrieve them later. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, be happy to answer.
I overheard a conversation between you and Chris Bolduc
Oh.
on Friday night, and I gotta tell you, I felt good. I absolutely felt well about this community and the precautions that you took, so, you and Chris, so thank you so much, appreciate it. Shirley, it's
I just have a quick question about the road. So this new base, it's not going to change how loud the road is it? Could be, because it'll have hot top over it.
Right,
Pavement's much
very loud
louder
right
than-
now, and it rides very rough right now.
Okay.
But no, it'll be very similar to every other road in town.
Okay,
when it's
just
finished.
concrete's really loud to drive on.
Yeah, pure concrete, certainly, as you can tell it on bridge decks, anytime you just go over concrete, it's
Okay.
pretty obvious. No, won't be concrete.
Okay, thank you.
The approach to the new railroad crossings, the concrete is almost invisible at night, and is that going to be painted yellow?
It'll have two reflective signs. If you see those cones that are there, I almost ran into them last night coming home. So my wife said, "See, I told you." So, yeah, we will, there'll be striping on both sides, so the center line, there'll be edge striping to get you around the island, but there'll also be a reflective sign right at both ends of that, so it'll show you, you've seen those before, where it shows you to kind of go around the barrier. Those are going up, I think, tomorrow, so.
I
that
would
and the
urge them
striping
to-
is happening
To
Wednesday.
paint the first 5 feet or something, just so that it shows up, because it doesn't show.
I know, yeah, it is, yeah, I looked at that as well, and I think that's a great idea, Bob.
Anybody else?
There is a shortage of yellow paint right now, so that's the other problem we're running into. So it's just amazing.
I talked to somebody who's on the state painting crew, and she told me that they're not painting even a quarter of what they should be.
Right.
Can't get yellow paint?
Can't get yellow paint.
It's not the paint, it's a product in the paint.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we treat a lot of these crosswalks and everything with glass beads, and that reflectivity basically shines up on your lights. So we'll get something that's reflective out there for sure.
We need to find a good exporter or importer lawyer.
I think we need to find the
We
product.
need a guy.
Yeah,
Come on, Mark, you can do it.
yeah, I'll see what I can do.
All right, the next item on the agenda is public discussion. Does anybody here wish to address the council from the public? Seeing none, we'll move right on. Legislation and policy 21-086 to hold a public hearing to consider and act on a mass gathering permit for the Cumberland County Fair to be held from September 26th through October 3rd at the Cumberland Fairgrounds.
Missed one, Bob. I think this might.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think you will, there had been discussion about a motion to rescind a previous motion, and that would have to happen prior to this motion in this meeting.
Oh, I'm taking things out of order?
You can be
Okay.
replaced.
Yes, okay. All right, so we have something else on the agenda to precede that. Our last meeting, we had an exhaustive discussion about rails to trails, and the council made a vote, and we have a motion to rescind or reconsider, you English buffs. So I'm going to be quiet, and if someone has a motion to make, so do it.
This is not a motion to reconsider.
It is
right?
not.
Right, to rescind.
Tom?
I'd like to make a motion. I move to rescind the motion not to adopt the resolution endorsing a rail crossing advisory committee to adjust alternative future corridor as proposed by the Maine Trail. And also, I'd like to move to set a public hearing date of September 12th, excuse me, consider and act on the resolution endorsing a corridor advisory committee, council, excuse me, to process the alternative for future and corridor crafted by the town of Cumberland Council.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
I will second.
Mark? So not to get into the weeds on this, there is certainly some thought process going on about why to reconsider this and why to bring it back to a public hearing. And Bill, do you want to just lay out quickly? I can do it, but maybe you want to take a stab at it?
Well, I think procedurally tonight, you would open up the discussion, and now that it's been seconded at the council level or the public first, it's up to you. Then you would basically vote on the motion as presented, and that would essentially reopen this item back to September 13th. At that council meeting, you would hold a public hearing to talk again about the Rails to Trail Corridor Advisory Council that is basically led by the DOT Commissioner, so, and outlined by public legislation that's included in your packet and a part of these minutes tonight.
So there will be ample opportunity for all of us to have another go at this. I think that we all had a chance to read Mark's proposed resolution. Thank you, Mark. A great job. I'm going to leave it to the council members to, if you want to discuss this tonight, but I think that we have enough information in front of us, and I'm just as comfortable passing the motion and limiting the discussion to pertinent things, and then have a full go at it next meeting. But I'm also open to, if we want to start from the left and go to the right, and so, anyways, open for discussion. Shirley?
I super appreciate your efforts on this, and I go back and forth, as I've indicated to you in an email over the weekend. My concern procedurally with this moving forward is this room is going to be packed with bicycle people, just given the number of emails that we've gotten. And it's not going to do anything for the 20 or so property owners along Middle Road. They're going to get, their voices are going to be drowned out by this process. And that's upsetting. It's the way things go. But procedurally, that's a problem for me. Increasingly in our world, the majority get to decide how personal property owners use their land. That's upsetting to me. And so I don't care to hash it out. I think we hashed it out thoroughly. That's just my procedural objection.
Before we go any further, I'll just state that we are here to represent everyone, and it's not to allow the crowd that shows up to sway our vote. It's for us to make sure that we are considering everyone's vote, and certainly I will be acting in that manner. Anybody else? Ronnie?
Will Mr. Woodbury be here, do you know, Bill?
He will be here on the 13th.
All right, that's what I meant, yeah.
Or 12, whatever that Monday is,
12,
12th
okay.
to 13th.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mike?
Mr. Chairman, can you explain to me how we got here?
Bill felt that we had missed an opportunity. He felt that we had the connections to ensure that we have a seat on this board, on this committee, and
Well, I guess that really bothers me, It is not the manager's job to set legislation or to suggest legislation. It is this council. This council took a vote last week, or 2 weeks ago. It was a 5-2 vote. It wasn't 4-3, it wasn't a tie vote, it was 5-2. And behind the scene, Ronnie wasn't notified, I wasn't notified, I don't know who else from the council wasn't notified. All these workings to bring this back up tonight. The manager should never have been involved. It's the council. And the council should have been notified, all of us. And that didn't happen. To me, this is some backdoor dealing. If you tell them a little upset by it, because the one thing we've always had in this council is communication, and we haven't had it. And we also know our roles. We know the manager's role. We know the council's role. It's spelled out in the charter, black and white. This should never have been, it should have been a council effort, and not just a couple of councilors. So I know that we're here to rescind the motion. I just can't understand how we can have a 5-2 vote in less than 2 weeks, a week later, a couple councilors got together and decided, we're gonna rescind this. How does that happen? It hasn't happened at least my time on the council, and I don't know why all of a sudden we're rescinding council votes. So,
I can somewhat respond to that. I was open-minded to collaborating, Mike, and I did take a call from Bill, and I did talk about it, because I am about collaborating. And I believed when I had that conversation with the manager that moving something forward would give us a seat at the table. But then I started digging into it, and I don't believe that. Based on the way the law is written, I don't think there's any guarantee that anyone's going to get a seat at the table except the proponents for this, bicyclists and pedestrians. And the only way we could get a seat at the table is if one or more municipal officials, there's no membership in here for abutters, the way the law is written. Furthermore, it's not written in here, well, if there's an advisory committee put together, it's gotta be done in 9 months. And then the goal of the DOT, it's not in this document, but it's another research I did, is to have these decisions made by 2023. So I don't think this is a project that's gonna take a decade to happen. I think there's a lot of momentum, and that's what you see on all of their websites, the momentum. There was an article in Sunday's paper, the city of Auburn is considering this same motion the same night. It is the 13th, actually. It says 12th here, but I checked the calendar. They're actually looking at it on the 7th.
Shirley, I negotiate for a living. It's what I do every single day. And when you negotiate, you bring all parties in. You don't bring in 1 or 2 people, you don't bring somebody else who's not involved in the process. You bring everybody in and say, listen, I'd like to bring this back in, and that's where really the rub for me is that we didn't involve all 7 of us, we involved a couple of us. And that's why I said I'm offended by this, because it just basically said my vote didn't count, Ronnie's vote didn't count. You know why? Because we're gonna bring it back up. True negotiations is bringing all parties in and coming to a compromise. And that didn't happen in this case.
I don't think our vote's gonna count one way or the other. I'm entirely pessimistic about this whole thing, and we'll be seeking legislative approval or action or something, because there is no seat for us at the table.
Your criticism is taken to heart.
I left that over that way. Go ahead. Bob, sorry.
Your criticism is taken to heart, and I will take the blame. I'll take the blame.
Yeah.
I could have handled it differently, I should have handled it differently. The town manager wasn't here that last meeting. If he had been, I believe the vote would have been different. That being said, that's not to make an excuse for what your comments are. I won't let it happen again.
Mark has something, but
Sorry, you're still.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first off, I want to thank you for your email too, and I hope everyone, my email came out hopefully with respect as well. I agree with you that I think if it's a true negotiation or to get to the best work product with anything you do, you need to have all sides and all people involved. I think that also includes issues like this. I think 2 weeks ago, we had some individuals stand up and raise some concerns about this potential project, which I think are legitimate concerns that need to be addressed. But we didn't have anybody here who supported the project because it wasn't announced that this was a quick thing that kind of came on the agenda at the last second, that I don't think we really got a chance to hear from a significant number of folks in our town that actually do support this. So I think if we truly want to know what is the best thing for the people of Cumberland, we need to have a larger debate where all sides are present, individuals who support the program or the idea of the program, as well as folks who have legitimate concerns that need to be addressed. Regarding the enabling legislation at the state, it does allow, under subsection I of the statute, one or more municipal officials or staff from the municipalities located on the rail corridor to participate in membership. And so that's one of the reasons why I took that language that initially Dick Woodbury provided. I think it's just a draft to make it easy for us. Sign this and send it in. I don't think we should do it that way. I think we should make our support for this idea contingent on us having a seat at the table. So we make sure that we are part of this, that we make sure that we can raise the concerns of abutters, because if we don't do that, and we just don't sign anything, we don't send anything in, my concern is that towns like Falmouth and Yarmouth are basically gonna be deciding Cumberland's fate. And they don't have the same abutters' rights and issues that we probably have in Cumberland. And so if we're not at the table.
Or they don't know about it.
Or they don't know about it. And so my concern is that if we're not part of that discussion, we're just outside with our arms folded saying, I don't like that you did this. And they would say, well, why didn't you come to the party? And so that's why I think this gives us something that we can go back. Again, if this is what the council ultimately decides to do, that's really what we're trying to do, is open this up to get a more robust debate on the topic. And if at the end of the day it doesn't move forward, it doesn't move forward, but at least that way we've heard from everybody and it wasn't on the very first raising of this issue. So I'll leave it at that.
Bob, just real quick. Mark, one of the things that bothered me about this whole process since our vote 2 weeks ago is we took a vote, never got an email. It was on the agenda. I don't care if it was in the agenda a week or 10 days. Never got an email. The day after our vote, we started getting emails, and they weren't like, I didn't like your vote last night. They never even mentioned our vote. All they talked about, hey, I support the rail car. So there was concerted effort by somebody. Oh, we got to get emails that said you support the corridor, even though we had voted. What happened when Yarmouth voted and Falmouth voted? 2 days later, it's in the forecaster. Guess what happened? Nothing. It hasn't been in the forecaster, there's not a mention of our vote. Why is that? I don't know. I don't know. Why, I mean, was there a, I don't know, there was nothing. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're getting these emails, and the 15 or 20 we got, it was almost a cut and paste from everybody else, and never mention our vote. And that's the kind of stuff you look at and just shake your head and go, why?
Yeah.
So,
After the Falmouth article, I did get 2 emails from abutters that are my neighbors. Joe Comiska emailed me, and Ralph Olton emailed me, both in opposition. But they found out about this project not through the town of Cumberland, but because it was in the forecaster that Falmouth voted on it. And they were saying they hoped that Cumberland wasn't considering doing the same thing. So it does go down to communication, and how do we, I would bet right now $500, not a big better, that the people that live along the Presumpscot River and Falmouth Middle Road, where it's not from here to the back wall, away from their kitchen windows, that they don't know a thing about it.
But I guess if I can jump in again, my concern would be if they don't know a thing about it and this thing gets pushed through, regardless of whether we're at the table or not, then what rights do they have to stand up and say no? Or what rights do they have to say that if you are going to build this, we want the following safeguards put in place? I think if we have a seat at the table, we have a better opportunity to do that than just not doing anything. And again, I agree, it's clear. The moment after we voted, the next day, we got 20-some emails or whatever the number was.
Oh, I
think-
spoke to Dick about it. He did send something out.
Right, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, you could do the logical dots in your head, it's
Yep.
pretty easy. But those are still Cumberland residents, those are still folks that care about this project, and I still think we give them an opportunity to voice their support. I also would like to hear from other people that have legitimate concerns about this project. Because those are things that we should make clear as part of our support, that it is not a full-throated, do whatever you want to do, we love the idea of this. I think all of us agree that a trail is a nice thing. But at the end of the day, if it stampedes on the rights of Cumberland landowners, then we have concerns about that, and we want to make sure that those are known.
I have one more stampede issue, and my other person that emailed me in opposition to it, besides family members, was someone who lives in West Cumberland, and she does watch all our meetings, and I think she emailed all of us. And she's concerned about the cost. If, you know, all these towns all decide they want this, and then they tell us we have to pay up, we have to pay our share, we have to plow it, we have to pave it, we have to maintain it. That's not fair either for all these other towns who have a lot more access to it, who have economic benefits. I mean, bike into Yarmouth and get your ice cream. My brother was joking about opening a hot dog stand up down on his property. I'm not sure how many healthy bikers would stop for a hot dog, but, you know, it feels railroaded. I can't get past that, you know, play on words, but anyway, I'll be quiet because I've shared all
No,
my
that's okay.
concerns.
I think the last thing I will say is that, just to bring everybody back to level here, this isn't a vote to say we want to move forward with this. We don't know how much it costs. We don't know how many people will use it. We don't know what abutters' rights issues will come up, or what the council will be able to do about those. But by doing nothing, we have no seat at the table. And again, this isn't to vote in favor of the trail, it's to vote in favor of the creation of a council to look into the issue of potentially creating a trail or other uses for that rail corridor. So that's just the distinction there, I think, is important.
I just want everybody to know that I spoke with the manager last week after our vote, and we talked for 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, and I think what we're doing tonight probably is the right way to go. I don't think it'll change a lot of our minds, but I think it is the right way to go, because none of us know the nuts and bolts of this whole project. Nobody does. I mean, I don't know if Dick Woodbury will be here to fill us in, but I do think, I don't mind going back. I don't think it'll change my vote, but it might. I mean, but I don't mind re-looking at it to see. I think, Mark, you hit it right on the head. I mean, I think we need to educate ourselves. It does bother me that we got 29 or 32 emails, I lost count, of everybody supporting it and nobody saying, I mean, why weren't they here the night that we voted? This is after the fact, but I do think we owe it to the citizens maybe to bring it forward. I don't think it'll change the outcome, but it might. I mean, I don't know. But I don't have a problem rescinding it, so.
So I'll apologize again. The agenda is approved by the chair. And my fault for not looking at the agenda and saying, let's not put this on the agenda, let's properly publicize it. So I think the failure is it requires some examination as we go along, that, you know, some items, and this one shouldn't have been on the agenda that night. It should have had a proper advertising, et cetera, so. All right, I will commit to do better.
I'll just two quick things. First is, I think Ron and I can help in the doing our best to be really clear as to, if this were put to pass, what the September 13th agenda item would be reviewing and not reviewing relative to support of the trail versus that this is about
A room
kind of,
full of people.
so just to be clear, I think we can actively support that as best as we can, right? People will do what they will do, but I think it would be clear what we would highlight in the council corner prior to that agenda. And then two, like in listening to this, I think we're talking a lot about process and, representation. And so I hear what you're saying, Shirley, and just to kind of echo Mark's, I think as I look at it, I felt like it was a little bit of a loss. Things moved really quick to not have, like Dick Woodbury is not a Cumberland resident, so he wouldn't get notification of our agendas. And so for me, that was the biggest miss, is I think we were throwing out a lot of questions that perhaps he could have either confirmed that we don't have an answer, or been able to say, yes, you're right, that would happen. So for me, like, that was a big piece of it, is just not having all of the parties able to kind of be here. And this would allow that to at least be possible.
Shirley?
I'm just going to go back one more time. If we do get a seat at the table, we're one of 10 potentially. And we have two advocates an advocate for bicyclists and pedestrians. We have an advocate for recreational use. We have an advocate for tourism, and we have two advocates for economic development, one for the local and one for the state level. So already, these councils are stacked against people in opposition to the trail.
You also have a state rep and a state senator,
Correct.
and their feet need to be brought right to the fire.
Yep, I'm going to.
Just one more comment, Mr. Chairman. If we had 4 seats at the table, do you think we could stop this project?
I don't.
Me either. I mean, and I made that quote the night that I made the motion, that I don't think it matters how this council votes. I think this project is gonna go forward, and I still am a firm believer of that. I don't think, I hate to say this, but I don't think they care what we care.
I agree.
I mean, that's my gut feeling, because I think they want us to feel we're embarrassed because we might not support this project, but I don't feel embarrassed. I think that we're trying to get all of the facts, and I think this is gonna help. So, rather than beat this to death.
I think you're right, Ron. I think that the bargaining position that we may end up with is that we're
Right.
not paying for it,
Exactly.
but
But Bob, for me, it's not about whether we support it or not. It's that somebody that understands planning, zoning, and impacts the neighbors is at our table. And I don't care if it's you or me or somebody else, that somebody's saying that, where are the bathroom facilities? Where do people get on? Where do people park? Where do people do these things that actually have impact to neighborhoods? And if we're not at the table basically raising that, this thing gets through like motherhood and apple pie without one single question or any type of question, well, how does it get paid for? If we don't want to pay for it as a town, what happens there? I mean, there are lots of logistical issues that are still out there that are, everybody loves the big concept project until it gets down into the weeds and the nuts and bolts. And having us at the table, and I'm politicking hard that you'll support, if I can successfully get a seat at the table, that you'll support that, because I will raise those issues every single time. And as a civil engineer, I know more than most of those other people sitting at the table. So, and I work with most of those people through DECD and through the Bike Corps, through PACs, through other organizations, that we have a good reputation as a community to collaborate with our neighbors. So our reputation will bring that forward, I think. And I'm trying to meet with the commissioner in the next weeks or so to sit down and say, hey, give us a shot here, because we may be the only non-motherhood and apple pie person at the table, and I think you need some diversity in who you select on this committee, because you need to understand there are reality checks along the way that you have to logistically make this accessible to more than just one or two communities. You know, if I get off at Baxter Boulevard, there's really minimal impact down on Veranda Street or in Portland. But if I get off on Middle Road, or if I get off on, you know, by the lunch school in Portland, and I've got, you know, 18 feet to somebody's backyard, there's got to be some protections in place here. So I think those issues are legitimate, and I think those are real, and I think folks that want to look and plan for this, we want to do it with open eyes. And I do think it'll take a while for it to be funded, because the competing interests in infrastructure are going to be, you know, significant. When we first saw this project, it was a rail and trail project where both were going to be held together. Now it's morphing into a rails to trail, so the rail has already been kind of pushed aside. So are we already going to say this isn't going to happen? It's probably well over $40 million to rehab this railroad to make it a successful railroad again. But no one thought a 3-mile passing lane for $14 million would ever get funded either. But that was all funded with federal and state money. We didn't participate in that. And now we have multiple trains going up the track, I don't know, 6-7 times a day. So things do happen, and it does take a little bit of time sometimes, but they do happen. I would like to have us be at the table just so those impacts are at least heard, part of a public record, and understood along the way, so that they're not just brushed aside, and we're not just, you know, paving from Portland to Auburn or wherever this thing goes, you know, without understanding what those impacts are. And, you know, if we're the lone voice, we're the lone voice, but at least we get our you know, our points across. So that's my thoughts.
I will share with the entire council, I met with Dick Woodbury Tuesday or Wednesday after our meeting. He came over to my house, and because I do want to be collaborative, I do want to be broad-minded and representative of the people who support us being in this role. And I asked directly about the rail to trail. I said, how can that even happen? Because when a property is abandoned, it's supposed to go back to the abutters. And he said that this trail is not abandoned. Technically, they're getting around this by saying that someday down the road, if they want to convert this back to a railway, they'll be able to do that. Well, I can tell you there are a lot fewer people up in Aroostook County, and they're trying to do the same thing up there, trying to take a trail and convert it back to a rail, and it is not meeting with much positive press. And here we have a trail right from their website, says the Casco Bay Trail, because of its location on a major commuting corridor in the state, will be among the most heavily used Maine segments, attracting visitors from around the country and world. This is in the backyard of our, you know, you look out Ken Casey's house, Ken Jr.'s house, and Ken Casey Sr.'s house. There's 1,000 feet probably of railroad they mow right up to it, you know? Maybe, I don't know, maybe they can sell access or put a gate there and charge it admission.
So I would, lastly, again, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over
I
and
know,
over again.
right?
That's
Me
okay.
too.
Well, it's okay. I feel like going to those individuals and saying, we either have the option of letting this thing go through, because that's basically what I'm hearing from folks. Do nothing, let it go through, and let the chips fall as they may. Who knows what they'll do with your access? Who knows if they'll put any protections in this for you? Or we can have a seat, we can fight to have a seat at the table, or we can actually fight for your interests. I would take the latter all day. Whether you vote to support it at the end of the day or not is a totally different topic, because we may learn as part of this process, this thing costs millions of dollars and they expect us to pay for it. That fundamentally changes my analysis as to whether I support this project or not, versus just saying, can I be in the room when it happens?
I have a procedural question for the manager. Joe Komiska asked if we could notify all the property owners along the way that we're going to be talking about this again. Is that something we as the town can do? He even said he'd pay for it, but I just think it's fair. I'm pretty sure, just the way the process has gone so far, that people don't know about it. I sent out information to the people who abut the power line, who own property on the power line. And some of those people have changed. They don't live there anymore. A couple of those got kicked back. I don't know.
Do you want to
I
wait,
mean,
do you want to wait an additional 2 weeks to do that? Push it to the second meeting in September if you want to do that, or do you think 2 weeks is enough? Because we wouldn't get something out probably till the end of this week, so. If
but
you
when are
wanted-
we having the public hearing?
13,
September 13th.
All right, so that's
weeks.
That's
plenty
3
of
weeks away.
3
time.
weeks.
That's plenty of time, so, yeah.
Just a postcard
Yeah,
or
that's what we
something.
do, just let people know that we're hearing, we could, that's, if the council has that, wants that as a prerogative, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
We have done that on other large public initiatives in the past. We have notified.
I know, I'm
direct abutters.
worried about precedent setting for that.
You've done it before.
We did it at the fairgrounds.
We did.
Yeah, we sent out notices, yeah. Remember when, I think it was when we were talking
looking at
about
the
Public
town
Works.
garage, Yeah,
Right, right,
Was one of them.
right.
okay.
Yeah, just about every
Exactly.
one of those town garage
It would save me
initiatives.
walking door to door,
Yeah.
which my son may do anyway.
Okay. I'm just going to reread the motion, and then we'll call for a vote. To consider and act on the adoption of a resolution endorsing a rail corridor advisory council process to consider alternative future use of the corridor as proposed by the Maine Trails Coalition. I move to rescind the motion to not adopt the resolution endorsing a rail corridor advisory council process and to consider alternative future uses of the corridor as proposed by the Maine Trails Coalition. And I move to set a public hearing date of September 12th, which I believe is now the 13th, to consider and act on a new resolution endorsing a rail corridor advisory council process to consider alternative future uses of the corridor crafted by the Cumberland Town Council.
Any public discussion, Mr. Chair? I don't think we've had any public, I don't know.
Is there any public discussion? Seeing none. I'll call for vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is 21-086, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on a mass gathering permit for the Cumberland County Fair to be held from September 26th through October 3rd at the Cumberland Fairgrounds. So we're going to have a fair this year?
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the answer to that question, I sure hope we are. Looks like everything's still gonna move forward okay for us. I mean, we keep an eye on the CDC guidelines and what they're gonna allow. Thus far, all the agricultural fairs in the state of Maine have all had record-setting gates, numbers coming in. And some of those fairs start as early as end of June, 1st of July, and there's been no, breakout cases from any of those reported or anything, so things have gone pretty safely. So we're confident, and we're invested putting on our fair and not having to cancel it again, so. And doing a safe fair. Not that we don't always try to do that, but to make people feel safe and comfortable we're there. And
Are you doing anything different than you would have done in previous years?
I think we'll probably have things spread out a little more. I think probably there are a few things inside that maybe we don't normally have, to spread things out a little bit more. But when you think about it, I mean, probably more than 95% of the fair is completely outside, open air, and so we're pretty confident that we can do it and do it safely.
Anybody from the council? Tom?
You gonna have a demolition derby this year?
We are.
Oh, good. We have
You
a plan.
interested?
No, I have somebody else that's interested.
No, no.
We don't dare compete against our manager, man.
I'm retiring as a former winner, so,
You gotta get out while getting's good.
that's right.
I just had one, and I don't know that, like, more of just in case this doesn't come up again. I know a comment was made, I don't think it's related to what you guys manage, because it's like the traffic and parking, kind of where our cone placement was and how it narrows that walkway for cars and bikes. So I'm more just reminding that that came up randomly, I think like a few months ago. We were talking about something, so I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
both on Bruce Hill Road as well as on Blanchard Road.
Yep.
We have had some complaints, primarily from a safety standpoint. They were put out for safety reasons, but they seem to cause more of an issue than just the centerline striping. So I'll work with the police chief and with Lyle to make sure that might be one or two less than there were before, just to space them out a little bit more so people don't feel like there's nowhere to go.
Yep.
So,
Perfect, thank you.
thank
both.
you for remembering that. So,
And if I could add to that, I think, and I remembered that comment, and, because our concern is to slow the cars down, because of the 1,000 people we have crossing the road historically. And certainly the cyclists coming through there, probably that's the time to stop the bike and push it as well, push it through that area. Because even a cyclist pedaling through there really isn't safe, you know, when you got cars stopping and so forth, so I heard that night, and we'll certainly
Yep.
do what we can do to address that.
And it may just be, I don't know what we can do for signage of like single way, right? Like I think bicyclists that are potentially newer don't realize, right? Because they should just own the lane, because just like you're saying, it should be like single file, everyone's going through. So I think it's that they got jammed up, and then it was like the cyclist had nowhere to go, the car had nowhere to go because they were in the cone. So maybe it's just, we think about the pre-signage, the
There was
like.
a lot of cones last year.
Yeah, right.
Last
So-
2 years ago, I should say, yeah.
And
Yeah.
just one comment, I think maybe a sign says cyclists use entire lane
Right, that's
might be
exactly,
a
yeah.
plus. I mean, and I've seen those certain places around town, I think it's in Yarmouth, they have a couple of them that said the cyclist may use entire bike and
Right.
entire traffic lane. So, I mean, I know the last thing you want is to go up there and scrape a bicyclist out of the road in front of the entrance gate, so.
Right.
We'll take those down after the fair, though.
Exactly, please do.
Well, yeah,
Put them down on the railroad tracks.
I was gonna say, I was like, that's where you probably see them in Yarmouth,
I think it
that's
is,
where
to be
you-
honest with you.
the cyclists do the whole lane,
No,
because it
that's a-
narrows.
That's a
to
good
exactly-
idea. That signage may eliminate quite a few cones. Because I think turning in and out and people crossing the road, and like you were saying, Lyle, the cyclists there as well, it's just a lot going on in a small area, so. And staff has no issues related to the permit. They have everything in place, insurance certificates, everything is normal. And so staff is recommending approval. I think Tammy has a memo in your packet, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a motion.
Thank you.
I move to approve the mass gathering permit for the Cumberland County Fair to be held from September 26th to October 3rd at the Cumberland Fairgrounds.
I'll second, or
Tom has a second. Any discussion, any further discussion?
I
Shirley?
just want to let you know that a couple of, well, I think I have the son with the most interesting COVID hobby, bucking bulls. And he owns 5 bucking bulls, but 2 of them, Whiskey Bent and Hellbound, may be bucking Wednesday and or Thursday night at the rodeo at the fair. The rodeo where they buck them on the weekend said, how close to Cumberland are you? He said, well, I actually live in Cumberland, so if you're interested, you can, check that out. No extra pay, no $10 to support a pig or anything like that required.
Okay, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Rob.
much. I might add, if I could too, that this year normally would have been our 150th fair, but with the cancellation of last year. So just a little let you in on it. Next year will be our 150th fair, so we'll have probably a little more special fair than normal. And we were planning a June 4th and 5th, totally separate event, more of a vintage type get-together, and probably obviously a lot smaller scale event, but, so we're looking forward to celebrate that next year, and we're anxious to do so. 150 years of fairs is a long time, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Item 21-087, to hold a public hearing to consider an act on a mass gathering permit for Binnie Media's Fall Ultimate Yard Sale to be held October 9th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Cumberland Fairgrounds.
So moved.
Second.
Anything out of the ordinary?
How close to a big dump day is this?
Pretty close.
Yep, take all your trash up there and see if we give you anything for it. Any discussion by the public or the council? We got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Item 21-088, to hold a public hearing to consider on a mass gathering permit for the Maine Principals Association South Regional Cross Country Championships to be held on October 23rd from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Twin Brook.
So moved.
Anybody from the public? Nobody here from the public. Anybody from the council? We got a good team, does anybody know?
Haven't heard.
Are we good? Sorry, checking calendars.
We
I like to
usually do.
run, but it's usually to the beer store.
This is October 23rd. It's a Saturday. We don't have any CSC conflict, Cumberland Soccer Club. Looking at my calendar.
No,
Okay.
Peter Bingham sets this up. Peter
So
does a
he was
great
good.
job, so
Okay,
the
we're good.
logistics are all coordinated. It's amazing what he does, so.
I will assume we're good. That was my only.
Any discussion? Further? All those in favor? Unanimous. New business.
I can give a little brief update. We had a wonderful hearing prior to the town council meeting talking about some potential ways that we might be able to work to help our seniors stay in their home longer, a more kind of aging in place, potential tax assistance program, building a little bit on the rebate program that we currently have. We're not at a point where we have a lot of details on it yet. We're kind of working through those, obviously, before we bring those to the chairman and the rest of the council. But I thought it was an interesting point to note because I do think it lines up a little bit with some of our workshop priorities that we're working on this year, so.
Just one item, Mr. Chair. I got an email from the manager today. It's not really, it might be a cease and desist order, but we are not going to be able to use the beach to bake and punchline for our race for the celebration. Sad. It's just sad, but we were issued a
Cease and desist.
yeah, from the attorneys for the Beach to Beacon. So I guess if we remove that one letter E and it's too close to their trademark or whatever. So I'm not sure how we're gonna change that, what the race will be named, but we have a meeting Wednesday night, Bicentennial Committee's meeting Wednesday night. They've done amazing things, just to remind the public. It's September 18th at Twin Brooks, an all-day-long celebration of our 200th birthday. That's all I have.
Do you have any information on the film? Because they're selling copies of that now, so.
Yes, that's the thing. So Friday night, was it last Friday night?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Lose track when we don't meet every week. They debuted a movie, Cumberland 200 Years. It's available on a DVD, and then they premiered it again indoors at the Center for the Arts at the high school. It's a little bit over an hour long. Hopefully, we will have some more public viewings of it because it's really nice to sit with your neighbors and watch it. It really is something quite special. Everyone chuckled when they interviewed my dad, and they asked him a question about, how I was doing as his predecessor, and he said, well, she's probably doing better than I would, but I'd never tell her that. So it's there for the whole world to see. Ron's featured, his dad's featured. It's just a really nice video. I encourage you. I think Carolyn plans to deliver, or Judy, huge shout out to Judy. She was Judy Taylor. She's Judy Taylor Gagnon. She grew up here. She did the lion's share work of this project, interviewing hours and hours and hours, and then cutting it down and getting media assistance from some pretty reputable media production people to donate their time to help produce this film. It's really awesome.
And people will be able to purchase this at the...
You can buy it for $10 from Carolyn Small or Judy Taylor Gagnon. And do we have any at the town office?
We're trying to get some, and I think they're looking to sell them at the library as well.
Okay.
So both places, we hope.
But you could contact them too and get it mailed to you for $15.
Tom?
The food pantry, we had about 60 on this past week. The numbers are starting to come down, which is a good thing in a way. And I did attend the showing, and it was nice. It was a good job. That's all I have.
I'm just looking at the kind of priorities that I'm on. The one more bill, I don't know if Carla mentioned it to you when we did have our workshop with the planning board. We gave her a heads up that we would be asking for her to come to the council. So didn't, obviously just like more giving her the heads up that you would be connecting.
No, she and I've talked.
Okay, cool. And I think that might be all I have for you. Yep, that's all I have.
We'll come back to
Yeah,
this.
yeah, that's why I just wanted to hit on that
Yep.
one for Bill.
All good, all set.
Ron?
A few things. Mark, thank you for getting the ball rolling on our list of businesses in town. Mark and I are on a committee to make an inventory of all of the commercial plus home occupation businesses in town to try to make people aware of what is available in town for town services, and we want to come up with a list of available land, commercial property where businesses could locate too. I think this is something that will be worthwhile that the whole council can look at. And I got to admit that I forgot all about it until I saw your email. So thank you for getting it rolling, and I do think it is a well-worthy cause. I mean, I think people will be surprised as to how many home occupation businesses are in this community. I mean, I really do. I mean, I started to make a list the other day of commercial businesses that you drive by every day, and there's still a few that you don't even realize that you drive by that aren't even really businesses. They are, but I mean, you don't think of them that way. So I think this is a worthy cause. There are 4 weeks left to the Cumberland Fair. If everybody wants to make donations to the 4-H food pantry,
Here's my
Tom,
20.
thank you. It's a very worthy cause. It helps the kids in 4-H, plus it helps the food pantry with some very good food. The 200th anniversary DVD, we watched it 2 weeks ago, Friday night at the Brew-Through. Was phenomenal. I mean, it really was. Judy and I went to school together. We graduated together. Did an excellent job. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I mean, I will buy one for somebody so that they can watch it. It's that good. I mean, not only do you see people that have passed, but there's some real history there. There really is. I mean, the businesses that used to be in this community would certainly override what's here today. I mean, they really would. I mean, it really is mind-boggling when you go back and look at the greenhouses that used to be in this community as to what we have today. I mean, it really was very, very well done. You know, it's just a good thing to watch. a week ago, or Monday actually, there was a rollover in Augusta. We didn't get any Cheez-Its or Pop-Tarts because I didn't get the record call. So had we did, you would have been getting Cheez-Its and Pop-Tarts at the food pantry this week, but I didn't get that one. So and that's all I have, so.
You talk about businesses, there was just a lot of chicken farms too.
Yeah.
There. They're long gone. There were a few left. So I followed up, Bill had sent me an email with some contact, and Allison had also provided me with some. So I've done a little bit of preliminary legwork with a elder care facility. Reached out to a lady out on Chebeague Island to talk about their facility, which is a very, very small facility. It's only 7 beds, but she was going to get back to me with some financials on it, on how they run it and that. And then I spoke with a lady at Avesta Housing. She's at a real estate development, but she and the president of Avesta Housing, Dana Totman, are willing to come out and sit down with the council and have a session with us to, talk about what we could do as a municipality and what they could do to join in with us. She said that there was a fair amount of interest across the state with public-private collaborations. In fact, the city of Portland had reached out to them with a very similar request to what that I had spoken to her with. So I'm excited to have them out here at some future date, and we'll stay posted on that. And last thing is our committee assignments here. A shout out to the planning board for last week. That was, I thought, was a very productive meeting. It's always nice to be told that you're wrong. I get a lot of that lately. But I think that, the planning board is in a unique position. They are in a largely judicial role, and the opportunity for them to step outside and talk about actual planning, I think, is valuable for us and for them also. And so I guess everybody's got, thank you, Allison, for getting the copy of this, and Brenda. Next meeting, I will actually ask for committee reports, and don't feel like there's going to be a lot of pressure, but anyways, I think that's where I'd like to see our new business is focusing on our goals and work assignments. So that's all I have. We have an executive session. Mr. Manager, do you have anything else to add this evening?
No, I just want to share with the rest of you that the ordinance committee is kind of getting into that crazy mode again, where they're going to meet pretty frequently, about every other week. They've got this Thursday scheduled updates to the coastal waters ordinance, the alarm ordinance, a zone change request out on Route 100 that has come in, and also they are beginning discussions on the marijuana licensing for medical marijuana. So there's a lot of work that's going to happen at that level that will be coming to you as it becomes ready for prime time, and it's just a lot of work ahead of them. So I think pretty much most meetings, beginning probably sometime in September, will have one of those items on there. The marijuana licensing will take some time, as we're under moratorium now, and we have had some residents that are actually in the legal profession that know the law very well, have stepped up and said, we're willing to help the committee. So that's pretty exciting. Shirley has talked to them directly. So a lot more to come, and it's open to the public. We're going to meet this Thursday at 5 o'clock here, from 5 to 6:30, and hopefully put a dent in some of those issues. And I did want to just remind folks, we have a acting town manager working for us still, Mr. Christopher Bolduc, who is the acting town manager in North Yarmouth. We have helped our neighbors get their tax rate out. Our finance staff, as well as myself and Chris, have worked together in trying to help our neighbors. We're not looking, obviously, Chris's time that's spent over there is billed to North Yarmouth, but, you know, he's doing double duty right now, and we're hopeful that they are successful in getting a new manager, hopefully early this fall. So,
All right, so we will, I think a motion is in order then to go into executive session.
I'll give you a motion. I move we go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056C, reference real property.
Second.
All in favor?